23rd of May 2023, night before, I've made contact with one of the guys from South East Wales who suggested that 100 House could be a good place to fly. Craig suggested we meet up at the Honey Cafe at Bronllys and share a lift with a few of the other guys from South East Wales. So the footage now is actually my second attempt at cross country that day. The first one was going okay, went over the back with Craig, managed to find quite a good thermal, got up to around about 2,000 feet or so, and then lost the thermal and came down around about 5 or 6 kilometres from launch. Craig managed to stay with it, and he flew pretty much all the way back to Bronllys. Yeah, it took me about an hour or so to walk all the way back to launch, so I had to pack all the wing away, trundle back to 100 House, taking about hour and a half or so to get back to launch. And actually when I got back there, the conditions looked better than what they were earlier in the day. So the other guys who had been flying had packed up from 100 House and actually gone and picked up Craig and then dropped him back to the van. So I was kind of stuck at 100 House, although the guys did offer to come back and pick me up and drop me back to Bronllys, to my van, but I was still quite keen to fly, so relaunched, got back up in the air and started to find some decent thermals. The distance from 100 House to Bronllys, my van was about 15 miles, about 18 kilometres or so. So what my action plan was to fly as far as I could and then maybe just walk the rest of the distance. So obviously the better I could fly and the higher I could get, the less distance I was going to have to walk. So after launching again, managed to get some really decent heights, picking up some thermals that were continually coming through, so it made life relatively easy at the start of the flight. The wind was also a little bit stronger, so if I needed to get back to the hill, wasn't a great problem at all. The only decision to make was really when I went over the back, so how much height I had before starting to go over the back. So at this stage I thought I'd got just about enough height, although had a kind of a little bit of a bailout to the side of the hill if needed. I could go down towards the valley and then land down towards the river and the road that were in the distance there. So this is that point of no return where once you get going and once you point yourself away from the hill, it's all about the flying skills from there, and maybe a little bit of luck with what thermals you can pick up. So at this stage I knew it was just down to me flying, and then what was left would have to be walked back to the van, or a lucky hitchhike if somebody was available to collect us. So the area just in front and slightly to the left is where I landed on the previous flight. So this was around about 5 or 6 kilometres from launch, so clearly done slightly better than I did earlier in the day, but still quite a long way to go. And obviously if I landed there, quite a long way to walk back to my van at Bronllys. So my best cross-country flight up till this stage had been 18 kilometres from Mount Caban in Sussex to just short of Heathfield. So if I was going to get back to the van, which is around about 18 to 20 kilometres, I would have to do my best ever cross-country distance. On this occasion, the wind was slightly stronger than earlier in the day, so I had that behind me to push me along a little bit quicker, and the thermals seemed to be a little bit easier to pick up than earlier in the day, so I managed to get some good height. I think 3,875 feet was the highest I got up to, so getting that height gave me a nice bit of flexibility to get some good glides. Just had to change direction a couple of times to get towards the direction of Bronllys, as opposed to going with the direction that the wind and the thermals were taking me. Yeah, extremely pleased with the kit that I've got at the moment for my cross-country flying. The Gin Explorer 2 wing, flying really nicely, picking up the thermals pretty well, and not too bad on glide, keeping up with some of the quicker wings that I've been flying with. The Sup Air Delight 3 pod that I'm using, again, really happy with it. Quite a nice flying position, almost like a seated position, but pretty comfortable. I've had a few flights now, 4 or 5 hours long, so been comfortable enough in the position it puts you in. The only kind of downside really is that the front end of the pod is a little bit flimsy, and managed to put my foot through it a few times, so currently in for repair. Also really pleased with my Vario, my Skytrax 2.1. Pretty crystal clear really, the display on the front of it when you're flying, so when you look down it's easy to pick up the altitude, and also the sounds on it pretty clear as well. Always a nice sound to hear when you're going up. I've been extremely lucky to fly with some very good experienced pilots over the last few weeks or so, so that's where I'm gaining quite a lot of knowledge and experience from them, which is clearly improving my cross-country and general flying skills. Flying with people like that has been an absolute pleasure and a privilege, and I'm just trying to squeeze as much information as possible out of anyone I'm flying with, really. Watching what they're doing, especially when they're doing really well, when they're going up, watching how they do that, where they go, and what makes them a decent pilot. Absolutely enjoying the cross-country aspect of paragliding. I don't know what it is, but I guess for me it's just a little bit of spirit of adventure, where you can get up relatively high in the sky with the views that you've got up there, and then fly with the thermals, with the wind, to as far away as you can, and most of the time not knowing where you're going to come down. On this occasion I wanted to come down as close as I could to my van, to make my life a little bit easier at the end of the day, but as well as the flying, I do enjoy the walking as well, so yeah, it wouldn't have been a problem if I had to do a few miles or so to get back to the van. As you can see, I really enjoyed this flight. The scenery, absolutely beautiful, flying above the River Wye, pretty much all the way back to Bronllys. So eventually landed on the north-western side of Bronllys, around about 1 kilometre or so away from my van, so absolutely over the moon with that. At that stage, that was my longest cross-country flight. Well, someday. Started off at 100 house this morning. Weak thermals coming through, had to be pretty patient. Then got a good one. Launched with a guy called Craig,
and I got about 5 or 6k over the back to about 2,500 feet, and he managed to get about 18k or so. So yeah, pretty good effort from him. I couldn't quite stick the thermal, so walked all the way back to 100 House to the launch. Took about an hour or so to walk back up in the air again. It was coming through a little bit stronger, so probably more what I prefer. Eventually got up to 3,000 and then just short of 4,000 feet, and I've landed about a kilometre short of Talgarth, where my van's parked just down the road. So pretty chuffed with myself, to be honest. It shows perseverance is worth it, so worth coming. I think it's about 22k in total, and 18k as the crow flies, so really pleased with that.